Dr. Carme, starting with a very basic question, what do you define as canine epilepsy? Can you help us understand what exactly is canine epilepsy?
So epilepsy is just basically an abnormal and uncontrolled burst of electricity in the brain activity. That's it. So the brain gets overpowered with electricity, and that causes twitches when they are just focal. You can be like tick, 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 or shaking, or even pedaling. This is the typical thing. The brain overpowers. This can be few seconds or several minutes. And the typical time is at night or early hours in the morning. You will see that your dog will start doing this behavior. Sometimes they urinate, that's when they lose completely control. And some of them, they might be still conscious. That's very weird because they are panicking but twitching. Normally they get semi-unconscious, but yeah. So it's that the brain to the brain.
Oh, that's very nicely and simply explained because, being a vet yourself, you'll know any human with their dogs suffering from epilepsy tends to get very concerned. And it is extremely heartbreaking to see a dog having a seizure. I can say that because I have seen it once. Uh, if you could also help us understand what are typically different forms of seizures?
Different forms of seizures. Well, you can have the focal ones, as I said, that you will have just or a face like that, or you can have the whole thing with the foaming in the mouth. I don't know if you mean that kind of types or differentiating between of the causes. So you have seizures caused by poison, and then you have a seizure because of that. You have seizures because of liver or kidney disease, that terminally you have seizures. You can have seizures for low sugar, same as in humans. When sugar goes low, your brain doesn't have enough energy and then starts doing strange things.
Right.
Low calorie cause that, and also brain tumors. You have a pressure and then that. After that, you have idiopathic one. Is one that your brain starts having this hyperreactivity, and then is when you get
there could be some dogs who have, because of some genetic predisposition, they have unfortunately, in a way, inherited epilepsy. And then there are certain causes, as you rightly mentioned, kidney disease, liver disease. A few might also be related to diabetes in dogs. That's what I wanted to better understand.
Yeah, so this is, I actually have a graph that explains that. I was gonna show you to explain you how to avoid triggers, but basically what you have, then I have my graph. So normally dogs, you have a brain activity during the day, you go like this and nothing happens because brains, genetically, their brain is prepared to not to seizure. The only time that any dog in the world. So the only moment where a dog will seizure, a normal dog with no genetical problems will seizure, is if you get to the epileptic threshold, which, as you see, the purple line is far from the orange one. What happens when you have an epileptic dog? When a dog is epileptic, this threshold is lower, which means that in a normal day activity, high activity will make you have a seizure.
Right.
Okay. This is how seizures happen. Seizures happen because you stimulate a level of excitement that your brain is not prepared to. Whether this happens because poisons make this threshold go down, or because excitement goes up for some reason, there's different reasons. But this graph is the explanation of seizures. You either reach your epileptic threshold or not.
Wow, this is again very, very nicely explained. And if I, may take away a thing or two from this. So let's say, if we are discussing how humans of dogs can do certain things to avoid seizures, one of the most important things would be that you provide your dog a routine and you stick to it. You do not
Yeah,
sort of excite the dog too much. Am I right in
absolutely.
assuming that, doctor?
Yeah. We've had cases. We have a patient that has idiopathic epilepsy
Okay.
and can be fine for a long time. And then, if for whatever reason they go to daycare, it's noted that that night or the next day will have a seizure, and quite a violent one. We thought the first time was a coincidence, but it's happened 4 times. So this dog, bless him, doesn't go to daycare. The seizure have dropped dramatically. So it's very important knowing the triggers of your dog, because it's different for some of them. Some of them, they respond more to light, to noises. There's even a paper, I can give you the link if you want, where it tells you per percentage what are the triggers. 74% is stress. Whatever stresses your dog will cause a seizure. There are some dogs that get stressed being alone, so you have to work
Yes.
on that. You have to
Yes.
avoid living. Some dogs will be stressed if there is a difference in the house. Some dogs,
Yes.
so whatever them, that can cause a trigger. Light, noise, sleep deprivation, that's quite curious. It was in the paper that if you have a noisy environment and that dog is up all night, it's quite likely that the next day or the following day will have a seizure. So having a good rest is important.
What are the signs that as humans of dogs and epileptic dogs we should be aware of and look out for? And do you think it's a warning sign if suddenly a dog sort of reduces his sleep hours?
That's a difficult one because epilepsy can happen. So reducing the sleep hours, you mean that it sleeps less during the whole day?
Yes. So, I mean, let's say my dog sleeps for almost 12 to 16 hours, and suddenly I notice that he is sleeping for 8 to 10 hours. Should I take that as a warning sign?
I'm not sure. I know that there is some restlessness and
Yeah.
some pacing for a. So
Okay.
maybe you have to be aware of that and observe more. Some people have cameras in the house to see, like, oh, it's been sleeping less, and then when I'm not there, there's a seizure, because you might miss it. I'm not sure if there is a correlation because I haven't read it in any paper. And if I don't read
Okay.
in a paper of, I cannot say yes, but it is true that this pacing and restlessness can be is a sign of pre-seizure. There
Right.
are some called prodromes that some dogs do. Like we have a case, for example, is a dog that in 8 years has barked twice.
Okay.
The other day, he started barking and then had a seizure. And he is been diagnosed with idiopathic epilepsy. And
Okay.
he has a seizure, as in like 3 minutes before he starts barking. So the owners know that this is one assigned pre-seizure. Every
Okay.
dog will dogs that bark will have a seizure. A common sign is like they will be sleeping, they will stand up and they will start pacing around the room, like something's going to happen, something's going to happen. Some of dogs, they will start trying to
Digging.
make a hole,
Yeah.
digging. That's so you have to know your dog, and that's why sometimes it's useful to have cameras and observe, because you will start seeing them, or maybe they will go to, like, my dog doesn't have epilepsy, but I know when he's stressed because he keeps going to the water bowl to drink. So if an epileptic dog does something that is like a sign of stress, you have to be careful. 74% of dogs will have a seizure because of stress. So when you think that there is stress, that is something to be aware of. Like start watching things away, thinking about, oh, if he has a seizure here, that can fall, I remove this kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Such useful tips, Dr. Carme. And that is actually my next question. What are some of your top tips to humans of dogs who are sort of dogs who are suffering from epilepsy? How can their humans sort of, make some changes in their daily lives to avoid possible seizures?
So actually, I do have few.
Yeah.
The main thing is avoiding triggers, obviously. So you know your triggers that we talk about: stress, noise, light, weather, Spanish, hormones as well.
Okay.
So as we said, stress is the first thing, is making sure your dog safe place to hide. So when they feel stress, it's like, well, don't worry, I'm going there, I will calm down. Because obviously, if you are here and stress starts going up, if your dog has a way of staying under the line of seizure, then you will not trigger one. So if stress is your dog's trigger, you need a way to avoid going up. Whether it's medication, or there is a place where he feels safe, that is an important thing. Like the typical moment that goes here is fireworks or a football match. Then they go up. What do? Go away, for example. So my cat, for example, his carrier box is a sacred place. It's always open, and when there's a stress, poof, he goes inside and stays there. 1 hour, 10 minutes, doesn't matter. And nobody is allowed to touch that box ever, because that's his safe. He's got a nice, he's got a toy that he likes, and nobody can touch it. It's not allowed. I know that my cat, when he's stressed, he has a place. My dog, he also has a safe place because he is old and he gets stressed. There's a small toilet downstairs that is always a little bit open. When there is fireworks in Barcelona, he goes inside and there's a little bed and he stays there. And he's allowed to do that and stay there, and nobody can use that toilet. If you need to go to the toilet, you go another one. Then I have another recommendation that is quite good, is about a safe place. When you have a puppy, because as old is more difficult, have a cage, not to lock them, an open cage with on top. Okay. And I've so many dogs that this is a safe place. So that's just a happy place. They have water, food, toy, treats, and that place is the same as my cat's box. When they are upset, when something is wrong, you go in there, and because the blanket is always there, if you have an epileptic dog, God forbid, then you have a darker place and they feel safe. So then, again, the excitement goes down because there's a blanket, stimulation. And if this box can be placed in a quiet place of the house, even goes more down because of the noise control. So when you have a dog, if you can cage train him, not for caging him, just for him to have his own bedroom. Yeah. When it's like, I don't want guys, I want my own space, that's actually okay. And it can double up for many reasons. If you have with an accident, cage rest in a happy place, at least it's a happy place. Right. So a practical way. Then when there's events, if you have a concert in your doorstep, maybe you want to go away, or even have your dog used to two places. Like if my friend lives in the mountains, it's a quiet place. So maybe you want to do 3. So then when there's a stressful event in my house, he will have a sleepover there. It's like, oh yes, my friend's house, I know it. So there's familiarity, stress doesn't go up, and it's a quiet place, and then goes back home. That would be good. And then finally, is if you have a female, you should spay them, because 40% of females with epilepsy, they will have they were in heat. In 2019, they published that report. And if you have a female that is not spayed and has got epilepsy, when she's in heat, it's likely that she has a seizure. Okay. So castration is not mentioned, but spaying it is. So if you have epilepsy and you're a female, better to be spayed.
And my last question to you, Dr. Carme, would you at all, bring in diet into the equation for an epileptic dog?
Actually, that's very interesting, because depending on the medication of epileptic dogs, you have to be careful. There's a medication quite without side effects called Epilis, is a chlorbromide, and this one you have to be very careful with salt. Okay. When too much salt, or when your dog is admitted for another reason and they give him fluids, this change of salt can make the drug less efficient and therefore have more seizures. Or if your dog, for whatever reason, needs a diuretic, imagine that you have which is not unheard of. You have a dog that has epilepsy, and then your dog starts with a heart problem that needs diuretics. Careful, because these diuretics might lower the efficiency of your medication. So you have to be very careful with these things. So that's one thing. And then diet-wise, there's been some new developments in the diets with more fatty acids that helps the brain have a healthy. Also, tryptophan is an amino acid that is natural, that gives a calming effect. So anything, again, I'm annoying with this, anything that keeps this graph in a calm space, away from the seizure zone, like let's say danger zone, when it's away from that will help. So tryptophan, and it's just an amino acid. It's like chamomile. So anything that can help you have a bit of a happier mental space, that is super welcome. In nutrition, there's people who know more about this, and I trust them. I think they are absolutely right. Diet, everything we eat is absorbed and got into our brain. So you need good connections in your brain, myelin, fatty acids, all these things. So a good diet for good brain health, good communication, and also whatever makes you slightly calmer, it will be amazing.
And one more question, or let's say just a message, because as I said right in the beginning, that as as humans of epileptic dogs, whoever has tuned in and listening to us, what would be your message to them? Because it kind of becomes a very hard journey, sometimes even heartbreaking to see them go through seizures. What would be your message to them?
Keep calm. So when that happens, it's easy to go into panic mode, and it's normal the first time to cry, but you just have to hold on when it's happening. It will pass. Once it's passed, call us. And by us, I mean the vets. Just call the doctor. Then let's try to find the medication, the strategy, the diagnose, to try to avoid this. Chronic diseases are there to stay. I have asthma, for example. I know that time to time I'm going to have to be on steroids, or it's going to happen. With epilepsy, you know that time to time it might happen. And it's your fault. You guys are doing your best. And whatever you can do is keep them calm, keep them comfy. And when the storm is there, just avoid that they harm themselves when the crisis is happening. And that's it. And then maybe medication, tweak it, and hope that the next one never happens, or it happens in 2 years' time. Sure. That's all.
Thank you so much once again, Dr. Carme, for joining me today.